Captain Michael Reed had been flying transatlantic flights for over 20 years, yet there was always something sacred about taking control of a plane. The roar of the engines, the gentle vibration through the cockpit, the way the horizon stretched endlessly, it made him feel like the guardian of lives suspended between earth and sky. This flight, from London to New York, was meant to be ordinary. 317 passengers, calm weather, clear skies. But fate rarely announces itself. 2 hours into the journey, the serene hum of the aircraft shattered. From the cockpit surveillance monitor, Captain Reed first noticed a commotion near the middle aisle. At first, he thought it was a quarrel between passengers, maybe a drunk traveler or a dispute over seating. But then the unmistakable glint of a knife caught the overhead light. Within seconds, 3 men stood, their faces obscured by masks, their voices loud, filled with menace. "Everyone down. Don't move," one barked, brandishing a crude explosive strapped with wires and tape. His accent was heavy, his rage unrestrained. Children screamed, trays crashed to the floor, and the once calm cabin dissolved into chaos. Reed's heart rate spiked, his training echoing in his mind. He slammed the cockpit lock switch. No one was getting inside without killing every passenger first. His co-pilot, a young man named Alan, whispered, voice trembling, "Captain, what do we do?" Reed's eyes remained glued to the monitor. He could see everything: the trembling flight attendants, passengers shielding their children, the menacing terrorists pacing the aisles. But amidst the storm of panic, something, or rather, someone, caught his eye. In row 17, a woman sat completely composed. She was in her mid-30s, with dark hair pulled back neatly, dressed casually, nothing about her screaming importance. Yet unlike every other soul on board, she didn't break down. She wasn't crying, screaming, or pleading. She simply watched, observed, calculated. Reed leaned closer, narrowing his eyes. It was the smallest details that intrigued him. Her breathing was steady, not ragged like the others. She comforted the small boy beside her, a child separated from his mother in the row across the aisle, with calm whispers. Whatever she said quieted him instantly, as though he trusted her completely. Even in chaos, she radiated control. The terrorist shoved one of the flight attendants to the floor, pressing a blade against her throat. Passengers sobbed, begging for mercy. The leader roared, "Open the cockpit. Do it, or she dies." His fist pounded on the reinforced door, each thud echoing like a death knell inside Reed's chest. Alan turned to him, panic in his voice. "Captain, we can't let them." "I know," Reed muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. His mind raced. He knew procedure: stall, communicate with air control, wait for military interception if possible. But over the Atlantic, that help was hours away. Time was bleeding out, and panic spread like wildfire. Yet his gaze returned, again and again, to the calm woman. Her lips moved silently as if counting. Her eyes flicked to each terrorist, memorizing positions, movements. And then Reed noticed something shocking: her hands. Resting innocently on her lap, her fingers moved in subtle motions, almost invisible to anyone not watching closely. 3 fingers, then 2, then 1, repeating. She wasn't frozen. She was timing. Planning. Reed muttered under his breath, "Who are you?" The terrorists forced the flight attendant to stand, dragging her toward the front. The poor woman's face was pale, streaked with tears, the knife pressing dangerously close to her skin. Passengers sobbed louder, some whispering desperate prayers. Yet from row 17, the calm woman made eye contact with the terrified stewardess. She didn't say a word, but she gave a slight nod. A signal of strength. A promise. Reed's heart pounded as he realized this wasn't the face of an ordinary traveler. This was the face of someone who had seen chaos before and had not broken. Alan's voice shook. "Captain, If they break through. They won't, Reed whispered. But his eyes betrayed uncertainty. His hands hovered over the emergency transponder. He knew the reinforced door would hold, for now. But if the terrorists started killing passengers one by one, the situation would spiral into bloodshed before they even reached airspace patrol. Suddenly, one of the masked men barked at passengers to hand over their phones. Another rummaged through bags, tossing them into the aisle. The leader pressed his face close to the cockpit door, snarling, "You open this, or you'll watch them die." The camera feed showed passengers trembling, powerless. And there, in the middle of it, the woman still sat, shoulders squared, unshaken. To the untrained eye, she looked merely brave. To Reed, it was something else. She was waiting, watching, almost as if she knew something others didn't. The child beside her whimpered, clutching her sleeve. She bent low, whispering something, then gently placed her arm around him. Reed saw it on the monitor, the boy's breathing slowed. His tears stopped. How could anyone calm a child in the middle of a hijacking? It wasn't just bravery, it was discipline. For the first time since the ordeal began, Reed felt a flicker of hope. The terrorists barked more threats, pacing like wolves circling prey. One accidentally dropped his bag, wires spilling slightly from its opening. Reed zoomed in on the monitor, his stomach twisting. The device looked crude, amateurish. Was it real, or a bluff? Even he couldn't tell from this distance. But the woman, she looked directly at it, eyes narrowing. She studied it for a second, then her lips curved in the faintest, almost imperceptible smile. She knew. Reed sat back in his chair, adrenaline flooding his system. He didn't know who she was, but he was certain now, she wasn't just a passenger. Her calm wasn't coincidence. It was preparation. Training. His co-pilot whispered shakily, "Captain, we can't hold this forever." They'll. But Reed cut him off, eyes fixed firmly on the screen. "No," he said quietly, almost reverently. "Not forever. Look closely, Alan. She's waiting for the right moment." The realization sank deep into his bones. Whoever that woman was, she was the only variable in this nightmare that felt like a lifeline. Something told him that when the storm broke, she wouldn't just survive, she would change everything. And Reed, the veteran pilot who had seen it all, suddenly found himself doing something he never thought he would do at 30,000 feet in the air, placing his faith not in protocol, not in procedure, but in one mysterious passenger who sat calm as steel while the world burned around her. The cabin was suffocating with fear. Every second stretched endlessly, the hum of the engine swallowed by the pounding of hearts and muffled sobs. The terrorists moved like predators, knives flashing under the dim cabin lights, their voices sharp as whips. The leader's fists hammered on the cockpit door again, his voice hoarse with rage. "Open it or people die." Captain Reed inside the cockpit clenched the controls so tightly his knuckles went white. His eyes, however, never left the monitor. Row 17. The woman was still calm. More than calm, focused. His instincts screamed that she was about to do something no one expected. He found himself whispering, as though she could hear him through the steel door, "Now, please, now." The leader barked again, shoving a trembling passenger into the aisle. The man collapsed, hands raised in pathetic surrender. The terrorist lifted his knife, ready to make an example. Gasps erupted. Mothers shielded children's eyes. People pleaded, begged, prayed. But then, she moved. The calm woman stood slowly, deliberately. Every pair of eyes turned to her. The terrorist stiffened, surprised at the sudden boldness. Her voice was steady, unshaken. "Wait. Let the boy sit with his mother. That's all I ask. Please." Her tone wasn't panicked, nor submissive. It was commanding, the kind of voice that carried weight, one that demanded to be listened to. For a moment, confusion flickered across the leader's face. He shoved the boy roughly toward her. Why do you care? He snarled. Because he's terrified. And you need silence, don't you? She replied smoothly. Let him sit with his mother. Then maybe the rest will calm down. The logic disarmed him, if only for a moment. Muttering under his breath, he gestured. She led the boy across the aisle. Her movements were precise, almost choreographed. Reed watched on the monitor, his heart hammering. He recognized it now, the gait, the control of her body, the awareness of space around her. This wasn't improvisation. This was training. And then, it happened. With breathtaking speed, she struck. Her elbow drove hard into the stomach of the nearest terrorist, forcing the air out of him with a wheeze. Before his knife could even drop, she twisted his wrist, snapping it backward with a sickening crack. The blade clattered to the floor, but she had already caught it mid-fall. Gasps filled the cabin. For a fraction of a second, silence hung like a held breath. Then chaos ignited. The second terrorist lunged at her, but she pivoted, slashing downward just enough to sever the strap of his bag, wires spilling across the floor. He tripped over the mess, falling hard into the aisle. Passengers screamed, some ducking, some leaping back, but a few, emboldened by her courage, sprang forward, holding him down. Seat belts tore from their clasps and wrapped around his wrists. The leader roared in fury, charging forward with the crude explosive in his grip. He waved it wildly, shouting threats. The woman didn't flinch. She faced him squarely, knife poised. That bomb isn't real, she said coldly, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. I know. I've seen this design before. You're bluffing. His eyes widened, rage flickering into panic. Shut up. She stepped closer. Every move she made radiated confidence, certainty. The cabin fell into a strange silence, as if everyone felt the balance of power shifting. You thought fear would control them, she said, her voice firm, unyielding. But fear just made them look for someone to follow. And now, they're following me. With a sudden burst of motion, she lunged, tackling him to the ground. The device fell, rolling harmlessly under a seat. She twisted his arm behind his back, pressing the knife against the side of his neck. His body thrashed, but she was immovable, unyielding as steel. Stay down, she hissed. Passengers who moments earlier had cowered in silence now erupted with courage. A man leapt forward, pinning the terrorist's legs. A woman used her scarf to bind his wrists. Others piled in, fury and relief blending into desperate strength. Within minutes, the once feared terrorists lay restrained on the cabin floor, tied with belts, scarves, and sheer determination. The plane, once gripped by terror, now buzzed with disbelief. Sobs turned to cheers. Hands clapped. People hugged strangers. Relief washed over them in a tidal wave. From the cockpit, Captain Reed exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. His co-pilot, Alan, was frozen, mouth agape. Reed shook his head in awe. She knew, he whispered. She knew from the start. Emergency protocols went into motion. Reed contacted air traffic control, declaring the threat neutralized. Fighter jets scrambled to escort the plane, ensuring a safe descent. But inside the cabin, eyes were fixed on one person, the woman who had stared down death and won. When the aircraft finally landed, security teams swarmed the runway. Passengers filed out, shaken but alive. News cameras were already waiting, flashes exploding in the night as the story spread like wildfire. Captain Reed stepped out of the cockpit last, exhaustion etched into his features. But he searched the crowd until he found her, the woman from row 17. She stood quietly near the terminal doors, avoiding the cameras, her posture humble, as though nothing extraordinary had happened. Reed approached, his voice thick with gratitude. You didn't just save them, you saved me too. I was ready to make decisions I might never forgive myself for. And you gave me hope. She smiled faintly, shaking her head. You did your job. I just did mine. The captain tilted his head. And what is your job, exactly? Before she could answer, a group of officials approached, men in suits, women with earpieces. They ushered her away gently, shielding her from the press. Reed caught one word from the murmurs around him: Major. Her name soon emerged across global headlines: Major Sarah Collins. A decorated intelligence officer. A woman whose quiet strength had turned an impossible situation into a miracle. News anchors called her the guardian in the sky. Social media lit up with praise, flooded with messages of gratitude and awe. Children who had once cried in fear now pointed to her image on screens, calling her a hero. But Sarah herself disappeared from the spotlight almost as quickly as she had entered it. No interviews, no speeches, no public tours. Just silence, as if she had never been there at all. And yet, for every soul on Flight 378, her presence was unforgettable. The woman who sat calm while the world collapsed had changed their lives forever. As Captain Reed later told reporters, his voice steady with conviction. Heroes don't always come with uniforms or medals. Sometimes, they sit quietly among us, waiting for the moment when the world needs them most. And when that moment comes, they don't hesitate. Sarah Collins had become more than a name. She had become a symbol. A reminder that courage doesn't always roar, it often sits silently, patiently, until the moment it's called to rise. And when it does, it shocks the entire world.